alien girl lived wild and unclothed in the jungle until the human took her shopping. The horizon screamed as it tore through the lavender-streaked atmosphere, a dying animal limping toward the surface. Jake Morgan fought the controls with white-knuckled determination, sweat stinging his eyes. Warning lights flared in rapid succession, bathing the cockpit in urgent crimson. The navigational display blinked its last and died. "Come on, just a little longer," he muttered, wrestling the stick. Below, a vast canopy of emerald leaves surged upward like an unbroken tide. There was no clearing, no mercy, just trees older than empires, waiting to swallow him whole. The impact came in a rolling chaos of sound and motion. Branches slammed against the hull. Metal shrieked and buckled. Jake's head snapped forward, into the restraints, then back against the seat, the edges of his vision already graying. The world went silent, but for the acrid tang of burning circuitry. And then even that faded. When he woke, light speared through a jagged tear in the ship's flank, painting dust motes gold. His head throbbed like a war drum. He unbuckled slowly, every muscle protesting, and took in the ruin. The com array was slag, the engine core hemorrhaging coolant. The emergency beacon lay in 2 melted pieces at his feet. He was stranded, no rescue call, no map, no way home. He salvaged what he could: a medkit, ration packs, a portable water purifier, and his pulse pistol. The rest was twisted metal and memories. Sliding through the breach, he dropped to the jungle floor. The air was thick and wet, scented with sweet rot and blooms that looked too perfect to be safe. The light here was filtered through a cathedral of leaves, alive with shifting greens. Jake set to work. By the time the sun began to sink, he'd cleared a patch near the hull, strung an emergency tarp into a crude lean-to, and coaxed a fire from the smallest of sparks. The jungle sang around him, chirring things in the canopy, distant throaty calls from creatures unseen. That was when he heard it, a soft rustle behind him. His hand went to his pistol, rising with measured caution. Who's there? The rustling stilled. Then, from between 2 colossal ferns, she stepped into the firelight. She was unlike anything his mind had prepared for. Skin like moonlight dusted with blue, hair silver white that spilled in loose waves over her shoulders. Eyes large, clear cyan locked on him with the open curiosity of a predator that's never known fear. She wore nothing, save for the shadows that clung to her curves. Jake's breath caught. He forced his voice low, calm. "I'm armed, but I mean you no harm." She tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made him feel like the one on display. Then, in a voice soft but sure, she spoke a single word: human. The sound of it from her lips was almost melodic. "You? Speak English?" Her smile was small, almost secretive. "Learn from sky voices?" "Many cycles. Sky voices." He realized with a jolt radio signals, stray transmissions bleeding into her world. She'd been listening for years. He lowered the pistol. "I'm Jake. Jake Morgan." She touched her chest lightly. Nari. The name fit her clean, bright, unadorned. They spoke in halting fragments until the sky turned black. When he gestured to the fire, she approached without hesitation, folding herself cross-legged opposite him. She seemed entirely at ease, not a flicker of self-consciousness in her bare skin. When he asked where she lived, she gestured to the living tapestry around them. All is home. Her gaze moved to his ship, half buried in vines. Skyboat. Broken? Badly. He admitted. "Nar, I considered this," then rose in one fluid movement. "Come, show." He followed her through the undergrowth, her body moving like part of the jungle itself, never brushing a thorn, never cracking a branch. After a short hike, the trees opened into a clearing lit by a pool of water, so clear it seemed to glow from within. Around it grew plants with translucent leaves that pulsed faintly, their blossoms releasing a constant, gentle hum. "Life spring," Nari said. "Heart of jungle. Give life." She knelt at the edge, dipping her hands into the water. Light curled up her fingers, spiraling along her arms until her whole body shimmered. Jake could only stare. What's happening? Life energy. Can heal. Can fix broken things. She reached for his hand. Need connection. He hesitated, then placed his palm in hers. The world rushed in. Warmth surged through him, alive and electric, carrying whispers of growth, wind. In high leaves, roots deep in the dark. The ache in his muscles melted away. And beneath it all, a thread linking them, her presence folding into his as naturally as breath. Her eyes glowed brighter. "Strong with you, Jake. Very strong." The plants around the pool seemed to sway toward her, their hum deepening. Vines coiled at the edges of the clearing, and the air thickened with a subtle vibration. Jake realized he wasn't just looking at a beautiful stranger in a wild place. She was part of this jungle, as much its lifeblood as the pool at their feet, and she just opened a door into that power for him. Morning came to Ariona like a slow exhale, the lavender sky shifting to warm gold as sunlight filtered through. The towering canopy. Jake woke to find Nari already moving, her silver hair catching the light in loose, gleaming strands. She sat by the dying embers of the fire, weaving long green vines into a tight braid, her fingers quick and sure. "Morning," Jake said, his voice rough with sleep. She looked up, eyes bright. "Sun rises, Nari rises." Jake pushed himself upright, rubbing at his stiff neck. The memory of the life spring still lingered in his bones. His muscles felt lighter, the deep ache from the crash nearly gone. "About last night," he began. But she was already on her feet, slipping the braid over her shoulder like a sash. "Skyboat can fix," she said with certainty. "Life spring give power, but need both." She extended her hand as though the matter was settled. "We go." He almost laughed at her confidence. "We can't exactly drag the whole pool back with us, Nari." Her expression softened into something patient, almost amused. "Not pool. Nari bring power. Jake bring hands." They made their way through the jungle toward the crash site. Jake stumbled more than once on roots hidden under thick moss, while Nari seemed to float between shafts of light and shadow. More than once she reached back to steady him, her touch warm and lingering longer than necessary. By the time they reached the clearing, the horizon sat like a wounded animal, half swallowed by creeping vines. But Jake wasn't alone anymore, and that changed everything. They climbed inside, Jake explaining each broken system, each missing part. Nari listened, occasionally brushing her fingers over scorched circuits or warped plating. Wherever her skin touched, faint blue light bled into the metal, making it hum faintly before fading. "Can feel," she murmured. "Skyboat still has heart." Jake set to work on the less glamorous fixes, rebuilding the coolant line from spare. Piping while Nari moved methodically, palms pressed to the hull as though listening to something beneath the surface. Every time he passed her in the narrow aisles, the hum of energy between them flared. By midday, Jake's concentration was broken by a sharp metallic clank outside. He froze, pulse pistol in hand, and signaled for Nari to stay put. She didn't. They stepped out into the glaring sun and froze at the same moment. 3 figures in sleek, segmented armor stood in the clearing, their helmets shaped like insect heads, black lenses glinting. Krell raiders. Jake had seen their kind before, stripping derelicts, selling off anything alive or valuable. One of them swept the scanner over the horizon. Another pried at a hull panel with a serrated tool. Nari's hand tightened on his arm. "Bad ones," she whispered. "Take life. Give nothing back." "They're here for the ship," Jake murmured. "If they find us, they won't be friendly. Her eyes narrowed, and Jake felt a faint vibration beneath his boots. It grew stronger, like a deep drumbeat in the earth. Around the clearing, vines stirred, leaves shivering though no wind moved. "You can?" He began, already knowing the answer. "Jungle protect its own," she said simply. Jake now jungle's own. The ground shifted subtly, and suddenly the vines shot forward, coiling around the raider's legs. Bulbous plants burst open with glittering clouds of spores that drifted toward the armored intruders, making them cough and stagger. From above, a swarm of chittering winged creatures dove in chaotic patterns, pecking and striking at their helmets. Jake grinned despite himself. "Remind me never to make you mad," the Krells shouted in their own harsh tongue, trying to cut free, but the jungle kept tightening its grip. Jake fired a shot into the air, drawing their attention. "That's right," he called, stepping into view. "Run." Two of them bolted, dragging their entangled limbs free. The third lunged toward Jake, energy blade igniting with a hiss. Jake met him head-on, sidestepping and slamming the butt of his pistol into the raider's helmet. The figure staggered, then vanished into the foliage after the others. Nari emerged from the shadows, eyes glowing faintly from the effort. She stepped close, placing her palm over the burn on his forearm where the blade had grazed him. Coolness flooded the wound, the pain vanishing as if it had never been there. "Nari, heal," she said simply, looking up at him. He flexed his arm, awed again by what she could do. "You're full of surprises, you know that?" Her answering smile was small but fierce. "Now fix Skyboat before bad ones come again." Her answering smile was small but fierce. "Now fix Skyboat before bad ones come again." They worked together as the day wore on, their hands moving in sync, energy sparking between them in ways Jake couldn't explain. By sunset, the horizon was no longer a carcass. It was breathing again, and Jake was starting to think that whatever connection they'd forged at the life, spring might be far more dangerous and far more important than either of them yet understood. Vexus Prime rose ahead of them like a lattice of light against the black. The horizon limped in under thrumming engines, patched seams gleaming faintly in the glow of docking beacons. Jake had coaxed her back to life, but it was Nari's touch, the quiet hum of energy she carried from the life spring, that had made the difference. Without her, they'd still be stranded under Ariona's canopy. She pressed her face to the viewport, eyes wide as the station's sprawling architecture filled the glass. Towers of glassy alloy jutted upward like frozen waves, their surfaces alive with neon streams. Shuttles wove between them, each trailing pinpricks of light like shooting stars. "So many," she whispered. "Like sky full of other skies." Jake grinned at her awe. "Wait until you're standing in the middle of it." They docked in a public bay, the metal underfoot feeling strange after the soft, living ground of Ariona. Nari clung lightly to his arm as they moved into the station's arteries-crowded thoroughfares, where dozens of species mingled. The air was thick with alien perfumes, sizzling street food, and the metallic tongue of recycled oxygen. She took it all in, the traders hawking wares from hovering stalls. A pair of feathered diplomats in flowing cloaks, a towering reptilian figure whose scaled head brushed the hanging lights. Her gaze darted everywhere, but her grip on Jake stayed firm. "Stay close," he told her over the crowd's hum. "First stop clothes. We can't have you walking around in a ship wrap." They wound their way to the fashion district, where storefronts glittered with fabrics that shimmered like water or burned with shifting holographics. Jake steered them into one called Stellar Couture. Inside, the air smelled faintly of ozone and something floral. Displays floated in midair, projecting full outfits onto rotating mannequins. A tall, willowy alien with skin like polished opal approached, bowing slightly. "Welcome. I am Amara. May I assist? Her gaze lingered on Nari, openly appraising. Ah, a naturalist culture. Rare. We will find something extraordinary for you. Nari tilted her head, unbothered by the scrutiny. Clothes for Nari. Jake says it is. Custom. Jake rubbed the back of his neck. She's new to all of this. Amara's smile widened. Then this will be fun. They moved through racks of impossible textures, garments woven from nano threads that shifted color with body heat, tunics that seemed to hum faintly when touched. Nari tried each with the curiosity of a child inspecting a strange insect. A smooth silver bodysuit clung to her like water. A deep crimson wrap skimmed the floor when she walked. She stepped from the fitting alcove in an outfit of gleaming silver leather, cut in strategic patterns that bared just enough to turn heads. Jake's pulse stumbled. This one makes Jake's heart beat fast, she said, voice entirely innocent. He cleared his throat, aware Amara was watching with a sly half-smile. It's nice. Very nice. Nari turned to the mirror, tilting. Her head, not for walking in crowds, for Jake only, private. Amara laughed softly, moving to fetch something else. When Nari emerged again, it was in a sleek cobalt jumpsuit with metallic panels tracing her shape. She looked powerful, less like a wild creature visiting civilization, more like someone who belonged in it. Jake felt a strange pride knot in his chest. That's the one. They completed the purchase at a painful cost to Jake's dwindling credits and stepped back into the main promenade. The crowd parted around them, eyes following the tall, blue-skinned woman whose poise seemed entirely natural. Despite her hours-ago introduction to the idea of clothing, they'd just turned toward the food district when Jake noticed the glance. Not the casual curiosity of strangers, but the sharp, measuring look of someone cataloging. A woman sat alone at a nearby cafe table, her silver-streaked hair bound in a severe knot. The indigo jacket she wore bore the insignia of the Galactic Academic Society. She rose smoothly and intercepted them. Pardon the intrusion, she said, her voice crisp, her Earth accent precise. I am Dr. Elainer Beckwith, xenanthropologist, and I couldn't help but notice your companion. Jake's guard went up instantly. Is there a problem, Doctor? Her eyes stayed fixed on Nari. Quite the opposite. I believe she may be Aryanite, a species thought extinct for 3 centuries. Nari blinked. Nari is Nari, from Ariona. Beckwith's brows rose. Extraordinary. The Aryanites were known for their symbiotic link to natural energy systems. If you are truly one of them, you may be the only living representative of your people. She hesitated. I would like to take a few non-invasive readings, if you'll allow it. Jake stepped in, his tone firm. She's not a specimen, Doctor. But Nari touched his arm lightly. Nari want to know about her people. Beckwith's expression softened. Then perhaps we should speak somewhere more private. This station has eyes you may not wish upon you. Jake followed her gaze toward a cluster of rough-looking aliens at the far end of the promenade. They weren't watching casually, they were studying, measuring. The hair at the back of his neck prickled. Yeah, Jake said slowly. I think you're right about that. The farther they walked from the crowded fashion district, the quieter the station's corridors became. Beckwith led them through a series of glass-walled causeways that overlooked the sprawling sprawl of Vexus Prime neon rivers of traffic below, docking towers stretching into the void above. Nari pressed close to the transparent wall at one point. Her hand splayed against it as though she could feel the flow of life beyond. You've never left your world before, have you? Beckwith asked gently. Nari shook her head, silver hair catching the corridor lights. Only sky above. Now, so many skies. Beckwith smiled faintly, then glanced at Jake. She's adapting quickly. That speaks to a flexible intelligence, one of the Arianite's most valued traits. Jake's jaw tightened. Let's keep in mind she's a person, not just a data point. The doctor inclined her head, unoffended. That's exactly why. I want to help her. They reached the sliding doors of the Astral Towers, the station's high-security residential complex. Inside, the air was cooler, quieter, carrying the faint scent of something floral. Beckwith's suite was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows looking out at the distant shimmer of a nebula dot. She gestured them toward a low table. Please sit. I'll bring up the archives. Jake stayed standing, scanning the room automatically. His soldier's instinct noting the emergency exits, the placement of the security node by the door. Nari, on the other hand, was transfixed by a living sculpture in the corner, a twisting lattice of vines and glowing blossoms, pulsing gently in rhythm with her own breath. It's a bio-art piece, Beckwith explained as she returned. Grown from seed, designed to respond to nearby energy signatures. She looked at Nari. It's reacting to you. Nari's eyes widened as the blossoms flared brighter. Feels like home. The doctor activated a holoprojector. Images bloomed in the air. Tall, graceful beings with the same luminous skin. Tone as Nari, living in cities that seemed to grow from the earth itself. Flowing towers of living crystal, waterways lit from within, gardens that spiraled upward into the clouds. This was Ariona, Beckwith said. 3 centuries ago, during the Hive Wars, your people's energy manipulation was unmatched. They could channel the life force of entire ecosystems. It made them powerful, and it made them targets. The Hive destroyed the main settlements. But there are unconfirmed accounts of a hidden colony, a sanctuary called Lumina. Jake leaned in. Unconfirmed? Beckwith nodded. I've searched for years. No signal, no coordinates. Until now. She tapped the projector controls, and a star map appeared, zooming in on a small moon in the Cygnesis system. This region is odd. Sensors register it as barely habitable. But the gravitational field is inconsistent, as if something is cloaking the surface. Nari stared at the coordinates, her voice low. Feels familiar. Jake caught the tone, half recognition, half longing, and a spark of something dangerous stirred in his chest. You think that's your people? It's possible, Beckwith said. If Lumina still exists, they'd have concealed themselves from all detection, and they might know why Nari was alone on Ariona. Before Jake could answer, his communicator chirped a secured priority signal. He stepped aside and opened the channel. Commander Holt's stern face filled the small screen. Morgan. Where's my data package? Jake straightened. Sir, I've made contact with an Arianite survivor. Holt's expression sharpened. Arianite? You're certain? Yes, sir. She's here with me now. Jake's voice cooled. I'm requesting official first contact protocols and clearance for her to travel to Earth. Holt leaned forward. Listen carefully, Scout. If she's an Arianite, she is to be brought in immediately for study. Their abilities could revolutionize our energy tech. Do not deviate. Jake felt his gut twist. With respect, sir, she's not cargo. She's a sentient being, and she's under my protection. I won't hand her over as a lab specimen. There was a pause, long enough for Jake to think the link had dropped. Then Holt sighed. You're risking your career, Morgan. But fine. She's your diplomatic responsibility under full cooperation with our science teams. Voluntary cooperation. Understood? Understood. Jake killed the channel and turned back to Nari and Beckwith. It's handled, he said. For now. Beckwith folded her hands. Then I suggest you decide quickly. If those rough types from earlier were watching you, word may already be spreading. The longer you stay here, the more dangerous it becomes. Nari rose, eyes on the star map still hovering between them. We go to Lumina. Jake met her gaze. She looked calm, but through their bond he could feel it. A sharp pull of hope, a shadow of fear. "Then we go," he said. "But we'll have to move fast." Outside, somewhere in the twisting streets of Vexus Prime, the same group of aliens who had watched them in the promenade were already talking to a man in a long, dark coat. His face was hidden, but his voice carried a promise that made the smallest one of them flinch. "Bring me the Arianite," the man said. "Alive." The horizon broke from hyperspace in a flicker of light, dropping into the quiet expanse of the Cygnessa system. Out the viewport, a cold green star painted everything in muted tones. The small moon hung ahead gray-green, lifeless, its surface cracked and weathered like an old bone. "That's it?" Jake muttered, checking his instruments. "Doesn't look like much of a sanctuary." Nari didn't answer. She was already on her feet, palms pressed against the glass, her silver hair catching the pale light. "It sleeps," she said softly, "like jungle in dry season. Waiting." The sensors gave nothing, no settlements, no power signatures, just wind-carved plains and frozen seas. Jake adjusted the scan parameters, but the results didn't change. "If there's anyone down there, they're buried deep." "Not buried," Nari murmured. "Hidden." She closed her eyes. The faint blue glow that Jake had seen so many times before began to seep through her skin, spreading along her arms and neck. The horizon's consoles flickered as her presence touched the ships. "Systems." Jake stepped back, giving her space, his gut tightening with a mix of awe and uncertainty. "What are you doing?" he asked quietly. "Singing to them?" she said. Her voice took on a resonant hum, deep and melodic, vibrating through the cabin. Homecoming song, old words, call of the root. For long minutes, nothing happened. Jake kept one eye on the scanners, the other on her, watching the way the glow pooled in her fingertips, the way the air seemed to grow thicker with each verse of her song. Then the moon shifted. It wasn't physical, more like a veil being drawn aside. On the screens, where moments ago there had been barren rock, lush forests bloomed in real time. Rivers gleamed like threads of silver. Structures rose seamlessly from the landscape, their walls alive with the same faint inner light as the life. Spring. It was a city and a garden at once elegant, organic, impossible. Jake blew out a low whistle. Cloaking tech. Biological cloaking tech. A voice broke through the calm, melodic and measured, speaking in a language the translator struggled to keep pace with. "Unidentified vessel. You carry one of our own. State your purpose." Nari stepped forward, close enough for the pickup to catch her. "I am Nari of Ariona, last survivor of my homeworld. This is Jake Morgan of Earth, my mate and protector." There was a pause, then a reply, softer this time. "Ariona still exists? We believed all lost. Only Nari survived," Jake said. "We seek Lumina." "Then you are welcome," the voice said at last. "Follow the beacon." A gentle pulse lit up on the nav display. Jake guided the horizon through the upper atmosphere, and Lumina unfolded. Beneath them in all its glory, gardens spiraled upward around crystalline spires, connected by bridges of woven light. Great living conduits ran like luminous vines through the city, pulsing in time with some deep, unseen heartbeat. They touched down on a platform grown from what looked like marble and living coral fused together. A delegation waited, half a dozen tall figures with deep blue skin, their silver hair braided in intricate patterns. At their head stood an elder with eyes like polished steel. "Welcome home, last daughter of Ariona," he said, his voice carrying a weight of years. "And welcome, human ally." Nari's expression shifted relief, joy, and a deep, aching sadness all at once. Jake felt it through the bond they shared, like warm rain against his chest. they were led into a council chamber or walls of living. Crystal displayed images in flowing light, histories, maps, and the record of Ariona's fall. The elder introduced himself as Thalon and explained in solemn tones how Lumina had hidden for 3 centuries, shielding its energy from invaders, surviving on the knowledge of the old ways. But that shield was faltering. In recent cycles, Thalon said, our sensors have detected probing signals from Vexus Corporation. Their ships skirt our borders, searching for anomalies. It is only a matter of time before they find us. Jake leaned forward. If Vexus learns you're here, they won't ask politely. Earth Exploration Corps has diplomatic standing. We can protect you if you agree to formal alliance. A ripple of surprise passed through the council. You would defend us? A female elder asked. Because it's the right thing, Jake said simply. He glanced at Nari. And because her people are my people now. Nari's fingers brushed his under. The table, a quiet acknowledgement that said more than words. The council conferred in hushed tones. When Thalon spoke again, his voice was firm. We accept your offer. In return, we will share the teachings of the Arianites, the art of living energy. A fair exchange. Jake nodded. I'll transmit the agreement to my commander as soon as I can. Later, as they were shown to private quarters, Nari stopped in the corridor and turned to him, her eyes shining with something fierce and vulnerable. Jake did good thing today. Saved Nari's people. We saved them together, he corrected, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Together, she echoed, the word warm in her voice. Then she hesitated. Jake stay here? Or Nari? Go with Jake? He took her hands, feeling the familiar hum between them. We'll do both. Earth made me ambassador to Lumina. I'll travel between both worlds. And I was hoping you'd come with me. Her breath caught. Yes, she said simply. But before he could answer, a faint tremor ran through the floor beneath their feet. In the distance, an alarm began to sound low, mournful, and urgent. Jake's heart sank. That doesn't sound like a welcome song. The alarm deepened into a resonant thrum that seemed to pass through the walls themselves. The living crystal panels in the corridor shifted from soft gold to warning red, their inner light pulsing in sync with the chime. Jake tightened his grip on Nari's hand as Thalon appeared at the far end of the hallway, his expression carved in stone. Vexus drones, the elder said without preamble. A swarm has penetrated the outer cloak and is mapping the surface. Jake's mind shifted instantly into combat readiness. How many? Dozens, Thalon replied. Small, stealth-capable, but their scans will compromise the sanctuary if they remain. Jake glanced at Nari. Through the bond, he felt the spike of her resolve. No fear, just a fierce, protective instinct. What do you need us to do? Jake asked. Thalon inclined his head toward Nari. Your bond with her makes you unique. The two of you together can link our living grid to your vessel's systems. That connection might give us the reach to disrupt the swarm before they escape. With what they've seen, Nari stepped forward. We will do it. Minutes later, Jake stood on the horizon's bridge. The alien city spread below, its network of glowing conduits pulsing like veins. Nari moved to the co-pilot's station, her palms resting on the console. The soft blue light of her energy began to seep into the ship's controls, making them shimmer. Jake linked the horizon's defensive grid to Lumina's living network. The readouts flared, alien script bleeding into human displays. He felt her presence in the ship and strangely in his own mind. Nari? He thought. Her voice brushed his thoughts like warm water. Yes, Jake, we are joined. Out in the black. The swarm came into view, sleek silver drones, moving in coordinated arcs like a school of predatory fish. Jake's targeting systems began to track them, but Nari's energy surged through the link. feeding him information faster than the scanners could process. Each drone lit up in his mind's eye, glowing weak points pulsing like fireflies. "Ready?" he asked aloud. "Yes. Strike now." He fired, the horizon's pulse cannons spitting clean arcs of light. The first drones shattered instantly, their cloaking fields collapsing. Nari poured more energy into the systems, the ship's weapons cycling faster than they'd ever been designed to. Below, Lumina's living conduits responded in kind roots beneath the surface shifting, sending bursts of electromagnetic interference upward like invisible nets. One by one, the swarm faltered, crashed, or simply blinked out of existence. But, as the last few retreated toward the upper atmosphere, Fallon's voice came over the comm, urgent. "Airpath is transmitting data. We cannot intercept the signal." Jake cursed under his breath until Nari's hand closed over his. "I can stop it." Before he could question her, the glow around her flared to near blinding, and he felt a surge in the link so strong it nearly pushed him from his seat. She was no longer just channeling power. She was reaching out, far beyond the ship, into the fabric of the swarm's transmission. And then it stopped. Not jammed, not scrambled erased, as if it had never existed. The bridge lights steadied. The warning tones fell silent. The swarm was gone. Jake turned to her. "That was not just me," she said, her voice quiet but resonant. "Lumina helped. And something else." Alan's voice came again, this time measured, almost hesitant. "It is time you both know the truth." Back in the council chamber, the elders stood waiting, their faces solemn. Fallon gestured, and the walls themselves seemed to unfurl, revealing the heart of the chamber. A great, twisting root system glowing with ancient light. "This is the first root," Fallon said. "It holds our oldest memories. It remembers why you were on Ariona, Nari, and why the human found you." Jake's brow furrowed. "Why I found her? I crashed because you crashed because Lumina called you," Fallon interrupted. "Centuries ago, before the Hive Wars, our people seeded resonance markers in certain human lines, rare, dormant, until the right one came within reach. That marker allows the bond between human and Aryanite to flow, to merge." Jake's stomach tightened. "You're saying I was chosen?" Fallon nodded. "The life spring recognized you. It bent gravity itself to draw you down to Ariona, where Nari was placed as guardian and scout when contact became safe again. You were meant to find each other, to restore the bridge between our peoples." Jake looked at Nari. Through their bond, he felt the weight of the revelation settling into her shock, then understanding, then something like acceptance. "This time," she said softly, "I thought I was alone, but I was waiting for you." Jake stepped closer, taking her hands. "And I thought I was just trying to survive a bad crash." His voice lowered. "Guess we were both wrong." Nari's lips curved into a slow, luminous smile. "Not wrong. Just not finished." A council formalized the alliance that night. Earth and Lumina bound together, not just in treaty, but in the living bond Jake and Nari carried later in the quiet of their quarters. Jake held her as the city's light pulsed gently outside. "So, what now?" he murmured. "Now," Nari said, curling closer, "we go everywhere. Show your stars to Nari. Show my roots to Jake. Together." Out beyond the moon's cloak, the galaxy waited vast, unpredictable, and, for the first time in either of their lives, utterly theirs.